Dreamers everywhere. Welcome to the Dueling Disney podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Andee Zomerman.
I'm the other one of your hosts, Aldee.
How are
Hey,
you?
we're dreamers too. Hey, I just know,
We are
dreamers
dreamers.
everywhere.
We are dreamers. Um, we're late. We're a week late in recording because we've been busy. And you took a cruise to write a dissertation,
I
which
did.
whatever works.
Yeah. Look, let me tell you something. Anybody who's worked on a dissertation knows that
Mm-hmm.
like focused, concentrated time is really what it calls for. And
No,
I
I
took
get
the
that.
world's most boring cruise so that I could sit there for 3 days and just be like, well, I don't think I'm going to take ballroom dancing. So let me just go ahead and keep working.
Well, did you get it done?
I got the section done that I needed to get. I wanted to get a draft of my findings section, and I did.
Okay.
I did like around 11 o'clock before we landed in Victoria, Canada at 12. So I was still able to do a full enjoyment of Victoria, Canada, which I had never even heard of before I went on this cruise.
What?
And it is gorgeous. Oh
You've
my
never
gosh.
heard of Victoria, Canada?
I'm an American. I don't hear about things that aren't America.
Oh
I
my
mean,
Lord
technically it's
above.
in North America, I
I mean,
suppose.
they literally talk about it at Epcot, so whatever. But okay.
Sorry, I can't afford to live in Florida Epcot like you
Jeez.
can.
No kidding. I feel like it's my second home. Absolutely.
Yeah, because living in Florida, well, yeah.
Who would do that? Oh, wait. So how's your Disney week? I
It was good.
mean,
I mean,
2
it
weeks,
was
I
good because I
guess.
was at Disneyland this week.
Yes, you were, and you
Up
saw
until
my child.
up until Wednesday. Yeah, I saw your child and your child's bohunk boyfriend. We had dinner one night. It was really cool, and I felt bad because I had dinner and then I had to go back and continue to work on my dissertation.
Oh, I think it was okay. I think they were
After
just
I
happy
bought,
to see
so my
you.
Disney week was cool, and I have a very specific Disney week thing that I think is interesting and fascinating. Uh, as listeners and viewers well know, I am a madman when it comes to Disney collecting, and so I bought a bunch of cool stuff when I was at
You
Disneyland for the
did.
100th. But here's the thing: there's a ton of Oswald stuff, which is really cool, and I saw this really cool Oswald the Lucky Rabbit looked like a bowling shirt, and
Oh yeah,
then
I've seen it.
I was like, oh, let me go try it on before. It was my last night in the park. And I went to try it on and I was like, what's wrong with these buttons? And they were on the buttons are on the wrong side. And I was like, I don't care. And I went and I tried it on and I was like, I don't know, man. This thing's like the V comes down pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Wonder
I don't
why.
care. I like the shirt. And then I bought it and I was talking to the guy and like as I was buying, I like my brain went, oh, I know why the buttons are on the wrong side.
Yeah.
This is a women's shirt. And it took me about a half a second to go, yeah, I don't care. Like,
Oh,
like,
good. I'm proud of
what
you.
do I
I
like?
really
That is
thought
such
this
an
was.
arbitrary, weird, gendered like designation. Like, I'm not gonna buy a shirt because the buttons are on the other side. Like, that just seems really dumb.
And we buy men's shirts all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So I
So
don't think it looks like a women's shirt if you didn't
I don't
look at the
either.
buttons.
Yeah.
So I know
I
exactly the
just
one you're
think that
talking
it's
about.
funny. Like, it's one of those things of like, I don't know that it's one of those things when I was like 18, I would have been like, and now I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
Like life is way too short to care about that kind
I
of
know. And
stuff.
I love that shirt. Okay, maybe I'll get a matching shirt. I looked
It's
at it.
really cool. I wore it
Yeah.
all day yesterday. I love it. But it has
I
a whole. Well, the other thing I did is the shirt is the back of the shirt is a poster for the Oswald short Romantic Rivals, and I bought the shirt, and then something in my brain said, "Hey Al, you should probably just watch that shirt to make sure it's not doesn't have like blackface or it's not racist or something like that." So I went on YouTube and watched it, and it's fine. It's fine.
okay.
Right? But part of my brain was like, cartoons from the 1920s. I just maybe do I want to be walking around and have somebody be like, "Hey, have you watched that cartoon?"
Oh my god. With Mila, yeah, for real. For real. Okay, well, that's
What
good.
about you?
My Disney week was spent at Disney World. The
Mm-hmm.
trip that was originally supposed to bring Annika home from her Disney college program turned into the trip to move Annika out of her college internship dorm apartment and move her things into her boyfriend's garage until she can find a place to live,
Hmm.
because she accepted a part-time job there, and
Very
she
cool.
will apply for the Disney Aspire program, which is Disney's paying for your college.
Which is really cool.
Really cool. So she
Hopefully she
did
gets it.
take this year as a gap year. It looks like she's going to have another gap semester, so a
Hmm.
year and a half, because you have to work at Disney for 3 months before you can apply
Right.
for Aspire, which would put her into winter semester. So we'll see what happens with that. But it was really hard. It was really hard. So I say let her go, but she's 20. So
Right. So she gets to do what she wants. But it's,
although
I
we
mean,
still
look,
support her
you still support
greatly.
her, and like she's still, and I know your family, you all are still pretty, I love you guys. I've known you guys since before the girls were born. You all are really connected in a very strong way, which is really cool. Not that my family isn't connected in a very strong way. It's a very
Oh,
different
it's a very
way of
different
connecting,
connection. Mm-hmm.
than your family. Your family is
Mm-hmm.
very much like the four of us. Ugh.
I know, except
You
you know
know,
what? It's not just the four of us anymore. Now there's six of us because the men of the
slow
girls have
down. They're
come.
not married.
One lives with the other one. And let me tell
Eh,
you, when you plan your vacations and now you plan for six instead of plan for four, I am not saying that I'm having grandchildren soon. I'm just telling you that there is a dynamic. And if, trust
oh
me,
yeah.
that dynamic is
Yeah. Oh
very
yeah.
apparent when the six of us are together for
Oh yeah.
sure. It is
Yeah.
not. But
Which is
I will,
why I kind of want to be the seventh, just to be like the wacky neighbor to come in and just be able to point and go, "Oh, this is crazy that this all is happening. I'm going back to my hotel room now. Bye."
yeah, exactly. Well, we had separate hotel rooms this time, which was great. I want to show you though, Annika did buy me. Da, 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 I'm so happy about it.
Oh my
Um,
god.
it is a plush Elliot for those of you who are just listening and not watching. And Pete's Dragon is one of my very favorite movies of
Which
all
we
time.
talked about recently on a whole other podcast that
I
we guested on.
know.
Yeah.
Al and I were able to be guests on that magical podcast, and we talked about uh Disney movies we would like make made into stage musicals. So that was
Hmm.
fun. And
And for
yeah,
our listeners, it is a 70s Pete Dragon, not a 2000s Pete Dragon.
yes. Yes. I don't even count the other one, so I forget.
I
So
don't
anyway,
understand that. I really like that movie. Why did you not like that
I
movie?
just love the first one so much. It
Yeah, I
it
mean, you
has
can love
nothing.
both. I love the
No,
first one too, but like the second one, quite honestly, was a better movie. But
no, it just
yes, yes, I'm sorry. I
don't.
love Pete's Dragon, the original, but it doesn't. It's not like
Uh,
you know
it's not.
Oscar worthy. Although
I
it
don't
did win an
know.
Oscar,
I was gonna say.
but that was because it was Helen Reddy. Come on.
I know she's great. So anyway, but we were able to do some fun things that we're gonna talk about today. Kind of a two-parter. Want to talk about some things today, and then bring Emma and her boyfriend Fernando on next time to talk about some other things. What are you talking about, Andy?
Wow, that was
Wow.
so.
So
That's
here's
such
the
breaking
thing.
news. So this week we're going to talk about some things,
Something, and the
and then
next
next week we're
time.
going to talk about some other things.
Yep, and that's our show. Um. So anyway, when I always wondered as a paying guest, why would somebody pay a day's worth of Disney admission and then pay either the same amount of money or more to do something else inside the park that day? So,
Mhm.
tours. Disney has a lot of great tours that they offer, but to go on this tour, you have to pay your admission for the
Mhm.
day, and then you pay for the tour on top of it. So the tour does not include the admission. And my whole life, I'm like, I'd really like to do a tour. I just can't justify it. So
Right.
now that the girls
It's
are both
almost like depending on the tour, like doubling your price.
exactly, and not getting your what you usually get for the admission price, right? Because now
Right.
you have hours that you're not spending on rides or doing anything like that. So now that the girls once Emma started years ago working for Disney at the college program, and we could use their comp tickets to get in, now I'm looking at it like, oh, okay, well, I'm not paying to get in. I might as well pay for this extra experience. So yeah, so today we're going to talk about some of the tours that Disney has to offer.
Mhm.
Al has been on some I haven't been on. I've been on some that he hasn't been on, and then we've both been on some of the
Both
same.
been on some that we've been on at different times.
Yeah. So the first tour I'm going to have Al talk about, I have not been on it yet. It is something that you pay for, but
Mhm.
it's not at the park, so you don't have
It's
to
not
pay
at the park.
admission.
It's through
Yeah,
D23, actually,
it is. It
the
is.
Disney, for if you're not familiar with the Disney sort of fan club, which
Mm-hmm.
shockingly enough, Andy and I are both a part of. Um, and it's the tour of the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, which is they offer it semi regularly if you go on the
Mm-hmm.
D23 site. Like it's not, I mean, it's not like every week or anything, but I think like 2 or 3 times a year they'll offer this tour.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to go on it a couple years back. I can't remember if it was I think it was
It
before
was
COVID.
before COVID.
Um, and I for those of you unfamiliar with California, if you're listening from out of state, I live in the Bay Area, and Burbank is in Southern California. My relatives in Ohio don't seem to understand this, which is why I make the explanation. So when my relatives in Ohio are visiting LA, they're like, "Are you going to come down for the day?" And I'm like, "Oh no, California's a big state." Um, so it's about a 6 hour drive south of here, but I made the drive. My dad lives in LA, so I just stayed with my dad and went to Burbank to go to the studio tour. And oh my gosh, it remains one of the signature Disney experiences of my life. If you're a Disney nerd, like I am, and particularly, Andy and I talk about this quite a bit, and you may have picked up on this in the podcast. Andy is much more of a Disney parks person,
Mm-hmm.
although I absolutely adore the parks, and I'm much more of a Disney movies person. And so if you are a Disney movies, or even if you're not even a Disney person, if you're a Hollywood type of person, this studio tour isn't like the Universal tour where you're on a tram and, you know, Jaws
Right.
comes up
Right.
and tries to bite you. It is literally, hey, this is the studio where all these historic movies were made and all this history happened. And we're going to walk you around and we're going to take you behind the scenes. We're going to take you to the stage where Mary Poppins was filmed, and we're going to tell stories about what happened there. And we're going to take you to the animation building, and you're going to walk inside of one of the animators' offices, and we're going to tell you why the windows are the way they are when they were built, and we're going to give you an opportunity to take pictures in front of the really cool signs, and the grand finale of the tour, which I am not too ashamed to admit I got very teary on, was they take you to Walt Disney's private offices. And they have went through so much work to preserve those offices almost exactly as they were when he passed away. And you just get a chance to spend a fair, not enough time where you're like bored, but spend a fair amount of time just sort of sitting, not sitting, they don't let you sit or touch anything, but being in that space. And if you're a Walt Disney fan, it is very moving. And you get to take pictures and all kinds of really cool stuff, and it was so worth it, so worth it. So much so that I've considered doing it again. And part of it is like, why would you do it again? You've already done it. I'm like, I would do it again.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
it's like watching movies again, right?
yeah,
You want that experience again.
yeah. You get to eat at the commissary if you want, and then at the end, which it's so funny because it's such a parks thing. After the tour, they're like, and we have a special treat. Here is our on studio store where you can get only stuff that is available at this store that is in the studio. Feel free to shop.
Yep.
And even though I'm super cynical, I'm like, oh yeah, it's such a capitalist thing. Ooh, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this. And I'm gonna get 3 of these.
Well, Emma used to work by the studio, so she used to go shopping there. And I I mean, I am jealous. She works in Anaheim now, but I was like, man, it's so cool that you get access to this.
I know, right? And it's such a cool thing. And I can't. I'm if you, Andy, decide that you want to do it, I would totally go with you on
Okay, I'm
doing it.
looking at doing it this year sometime. So, um, I'm gonna hopefully work out a trip to go visit Emma
Hmm.
and work that in there somehow. So yeah, that is awesome. Um, there's so many. If you go to the website, either Disneyland or Disney World, extra experiences, just so many to choose from. So it's hard to pick a tour. Now, like Al said, that specific one you're going to find on the D23 website. And actually, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to go on with that, because with the mass Disney layoffs, a lot of D23 was let go and absorbed by a different department. And so I'm kind of curious to see what will happen with these tours, and will more come up or will less? I don't know. I don't know what direction they're going with that.
I mean, I think that's a really good question. For me, I'm like, this seems to be pure profit. I don't know
Right.
why, but in a world of limited resources, maybe they're going to phase them out. I don't know, but as a Disney fan,
Right. I think they'll keep the studio tours for
yeah, I
sure.
mean, it's such a unique and like moving experience.
Hmm.
And again, it's because it's Disney, right? Like I love Warner Brothers, but I don't think I'd have the same response being like, "Hey, here's where, they drew bugs," right? Like,
I
you
know.
know,
What is that? Man, it's so weird,
it's
Disney
a
getting you in
Disney
all the feels,
specific
no matter
thing.
what.
I mean, unless I got a chance to go to DC Comics, that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, you would be. I
Yeah.
know that you would be happy about that.
Yeah.
Well, we were able to take a tour that I've wanted to take for a very long time, but especially now. And so when we were at Walt Disney World last week in the Magic Kingdom, we took the Keys to the Kingdom tour.
Which I've
And
always been fascinated about. That seems like such a great tour.
it is a great tour. And I'm glad that I went on it so that I can tell you, our listeners or watchers, if you haven't been on it before,
And even me.
this, and even you, this is for the die-hard Disney fan. Okay, so if you are just sort of like, yeah, Disney's cool, let's see what's going on, it is a 5-hour tour on your feet. It is so intense. It's like going to a professional development section or a workshop for 5 hours. And sometimes you go to those and you come out and so much information has been just spewed at you for 6 hours straight or whatever. And you come out of that and you're like, what just happened? I have to process. That's kind of like the Keys to the Kingdom tour. It was wonderful and I enjoyed every minute of it.
And can you describe like what encompasses the Keys to the King? Like what is the like to me the Walt Disney Studio Tours, that makes sense. It's sort of self-evident. But the Keys to the
Right.
Kingdom, is it all four parks? Is it backstage? Like what is it?
It is not. So it is literally the Magic Kingdom, and it is 5 hours, like I said. Starting out,
So
I
it's
won't go through the
not a
whole thing.
3 hour tour? A
Not a
3 hour
three-hour
tour?
tour.
Okay.
um, uh,
Again, our jokes really land with people in New York.
you start out on Main Street. You actually check in at Tony's restaurant, if you know where that is. But once you walk in on Main Street, it's the building immediately to your right, and you check in and you wait. And then the tour guide starts the tour and starts spewing the information. Now, you get a lot, and I'm going to share a little bit because I want to share this with you. I think it's so cool, and I don't think it's a spoiler, but I don't want to share a ton with you because I really do encourage you to go on this and hear it for the first time from a guide who is so passionate about Disney history. You have to remember, Walt Disney never was on the grounds of Walt Disney World because he died in 67.
Wait a minute, what?
So I know,
We're gonna need
shocker.
to put a spoiler alert
Yeah,
on game
spoiler
here.
alert. And so what was fascinating to me is a lot of this history had to do with Roy. Because Roy took the reins and went for it, and
Yeah,
Roy
came out of
died.
retirement to do so.
He
Yeah,
did. And he died soon after Disney World opened, six
yeah.
months later. So what a tribute to him to get this project off the ground. Um, and so yes, we did get to go backstage. I think there's an age limit on this tour because you have to be 16 and up. There's some content that maybe young children or people that love magic no matter what. I'll be
Right.
happy to tell you that backstage, Mickey and Minnie are Mickey and Minnie, no matter what Al says. It's shocking. Snow White, Cinderella, they're just there.
Sure.
Al,
Yeah,
you don't know anything.
yeah. I mean that.
Anyway,
Let's be clear. That is 100% true. That I don't know anything. But I would also wonder if they're like, "Hey, everybody, we're doing the tour, so
That
keep it tight."
That's no, I will tell you, no, you do get to see a lot of things. Why it was so meaningful to me is that the girls have both worked there and the girls have both seen backstage and in the utilidors, which I'll explain in a moment if you don't know what those are. And I really wanted to see where the girls worked, where my own girls worked. And so it was great to see the things that they could see, to see where their break rooms are, to see, how they get to work every day in the morning. So on a personal note, that was great for me. Ed enjoyed because we went backstage where the parades begin and end and where all the floats are kept. And so the safety features for the parades were very interesting.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, just incredible the work that goes into something, you see a parade going down the street, but all the work that goes into just one show, one episode of the parade, right? And there's like what, two a day or whatever.
Hmm.
So it was really, really cool to see that. But the thing I loved and that I want to share with you, because I just, again, this made me tear up a little bit. I have to get my notes up. Um, One thing, this is one of those things that if you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that, but I loved how our tour guide explained it.
Hmm.
If you don't know and you've never been to the Magic Kingdom before, the Magic Kingdom was built on swampland, and Walt Disney was not happy at Disneyland when one cast member had to get from one place to the other, and you saw someone in a Frontierland costume in Tomorrowland. It wasn't part of the show. It kind of like destroyed the magic a little bit. So when they were on their way to build Magic Kingdom, he wanted a place where cast members could be cast members and completely away from the show, away from the magic. And so they built these utilidors. They're corridors, but they're big enough for, forklifts to go down and cast members and gyms and break rooms and a whole city, a subway, a barber shop. They built that on the ground floor. And then the Magic Kingdom is actually on the second story.
Right.
So if you notice while you're walking up to the Magic Kingdom, there is a bit of an incline when you walk up, and it's noticeable once you know it's there. But what I
Yeah. But
really
you
took,
know what else is noticeable? Because I was at Disneyland just this week,
yeah.
is you do see it's this weird random, you see cast members just walking, in
Mhm.
one area that don't belong in that area, and it's really weird. And they feel uncomfortable and you feel uncomfortable, right?
The other thing I noticed at Disneyland that's weird too, for me, is when you're going to get an Uber or a Lyft, they're just there in their costumes.
Yeah.
Everybody comes in the same way and out the same way, and
Right.
and that's not how it is at Disney World. They completely changed that around. So in fact, Annika, when she works at the Magic Kingdom, there is a parking lot, and then from that parking lot, you get on a bus that drives you a half a mile to the utilidors, and then you enter into the work site. So it's a process.
Yeah.
Um, but what I loved about it is that they said, Walt Disney is all about the show, backstage, on stage, things like that. So when you go to the Magic Kingdom, you go to you're on this incline that you barely notice. Um, but before you go, you pay your ticket. So you give the ticket to the ticket person. And if you've been there before, you go straight up to the train station and there's the Flower Mickey right there. You can't see the castle
Hmm.
from there. You cannot see the castle until you pay your ticket and you go through the gate. And once you go through the gate on either side, you'll see that you have popcorn on your left and a confectionery candy to your right, which is just like a movie theater. And then once you come in through that gate and you enter Main Street, that's when the castle appears. And so
Hmm.
it's like the main attraction to the show. And a lot of you, if you're fans, know that the Disney windows, all the names on the windows of the shops and things like that are actually credits towards people that have worked at Disney or on Disney things. And so she was saying how those are the opening credits as you walk
Hmm.
to the castle.
That's so cool.
And it's true. Nowadays we see credits at the end of a movie or at the end
Right.
of a show, but she was even saying it was Star Wars that kind of brought
Yeah.
that to
Yeah.
life. So anything up to the 70s, your credits are all going to be at the beginning of the movie. And so I just love that. I don't know if you
That's
think
such,
that's
I
dumb
never
or
really
cool,
thought
but
about that in terms of show, but that's really cool.
yeah, it's not a secret, right? And if you
Yeah.
think about it, you're like, oh wow. But there's all kinds of places
And it's also, we think about it specifically with Disney, how Disney movies open
Yes. Oh
with
yeah,
like the
totally.
castle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fascinating too how the lands are developed or designed, again, different than Disneyland. If you're in Frontierland, you can't see out to anywhere else. You can't see the castle. You can't,
Hmm.
because you're in Frontierland. And so they designed the lands in that way too. Anyway, that was just a little bit of information. They gave a ton of information. I highly recommend it. You get to go in the utilidors.
Yeah.
Um,
It is so choice if you have the
if
means.
you have the means, I highly recommend it. But again, if you're going with somebody who's just about
Right.
Disney,
It's
it
probably going to be like, why are we spending the time here? Let's go. Right. Like, but for,
5 hours was a
yeah.
lot.
Well,
It
but
was a
for like
lot.
folks like you and me, and I got to imagine somebody who's listening to this podcast, right? Like,
Hmm.
it is a, I have been to the Disney parks enough that this is the kind of thing I'm looking for, right? Like, if I had a choice between this tour and riding Space Mountain, I mean, I love Space Mountain, don't get me wrong, but like, this is the stuff that I would make a great day at the park for me.
I will say, and I won't tell you which ones because again, I don't want to spoil, but you are able to go on some attractions, and but the attractions that you go on, um, aren't, you get the tour guide telling you behind the scenes looks at
Right.
the attraction. So it's
Yeah.
not, you're not going on it like a regular guest.
Right.
You're getting information about the attractions with it. It was
And how many
fascinating.
how many attractions are a part of it? Like, because I know, and we're going to talk about the next one that we basically got, I think, on one, maybe two attractions.
I don't
Uh,
remember getting on any.
when I went, that it was a part of the tour to get on. Maybe it was just one, but we got on
Okay.
one, and
All right.
it was the Fantasyland, and it was really quick. We'll get to that, but I wasn't
Okay.
sure if there was.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah, so normally I think there's two or three that you get to go on. I will tell you, one was broken when we
Mm,
went. Like we were ready to go. She did the whole lead up into it, and we
right.
get to the attraction and they're like, it's down.
Sorry, folks.
Sorry, folks, park's closed. Now, that was a little bit disappointing, but
Right.
to make up for it, we got to spend more time in the utilidors and she got to show us more things in the utilidors than they normally do. Now, I don't know how everybody else felt about that, but
Right.
for me, who had two daughters that actually worked there, I got to see more of
Right.
where they spend their time. So for me as a mom, loved it. So
Yeah.
happy with that. So yeah, so that was Keys to the Kingdom. And I, like I said, highly recommend.
Yeah. I really, if I ever make my way back to Disney World, might take the opportunity to spend a
It's
day
worth
doing
it,
that. Yeah.
Al. It's
Because
worth
I
it.
mean, and here's the thing specifically at the Magic Kingdom, because when I go to Walt Disney World, I probably Magic Kingdom is the place I spend the least amount of time, simply
Mm-hmm.
because it's like such an
Right?
analog to Disneyland. I'm like, well, I
That's
can get this back home.
that's why it was so special.
Yeah.
Um, just like the other tour we're going to talk about, and I don't know if you did with the studios, but you get like this little keepsake
Oh yeah.
name tag, and then you get the pin
Yeah. Well, we
for Keys of
got
the Kingdom.
uh on the uh on the Burbank, on the studios tour, we got a pen,
Mm-hmm.
but we also got, strangely enough, a pen that you write with
Oh, I
that
remember you
is
said
from
that.
the desk of Walt Disney. So yeah, that was super cool.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, that was, I mean, so studio, Keys of the Kingdom, and then both Al and I at different
Hmm.
times have
Hmm.
been on the special one at Disneyland.
The
Do you want
Walk
to
and
start
Walt
off with that?
Footsteps
Walk
tour.
in Walt's
And
footsteps.
again, I know I just talked about how special the studio tour was, but this one was really special. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a big weepy person when it comes to these.
Oh,
So did I cry on this one? No, I'm a man. I mean,
please.
it was a little dusty in Walt's apartment, and so I had a
Mm-hmm.
reaction to some of the dust in the apartment. I didn't cry because I'm a man,
Oh, God. Give
and
me a
I'm a
break.
manly man who doesn't cry, and that toxicity will
Anyway.
kill me. But yeah, the Walk and Walt's Footsteps tour at Disneyland is a very personalized tour of Disneyland, which Walt built himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other people were there. He wasn't like there hammering stuff or anything.
I
Um,
don't know.
it was Walt. But it's a tour around Disneyland and just very specific of Walt and his life and his experience and the things that he did. And it culminates in a visit to Walt's family apartment over the, where is it again, Andy? Over the fire
Well, you don't know
station?
where it is. You
I
don't
know
seem to
where it is.
remember.
Over the fire station on Main Street. And again, the thing I like about the Disney tours is they don't just like run you in and run you out. You do get to spend a little bit of time and take a ton of pictures in the apartment. And that's where they save the weepiest of weepy stories about
Mm-hmm.
Walt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it was amazing. Now, I went a few years back pre COVID. When did you go? I can't
I
remember.
went right before COVID, so we went in 2019, the summer of
Okay.
2019.
I think I went maybe about a year before that. And oh my God, took so many pictures in the apartment.
Mm.
But what was your experience of it?
I liked it too. What I noticed the difference between both tours actually is well, the Walk and Walt's Footsteps was like was it 2 hour, 3 hour? I can't remember what the whole thing was.
Yeah, it
Both
was a little over 3 hours, I want to say.
Okay, both tours, by the way, of those tours, you got lunch included with it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
we
and
did
a
get,
pretty decent lunch, as a matter.
yeah,
I
hmm
thought they were just going to be like, here's a hoagie, but it was really good.
yeah, it was. And I know from Walt's Footsteps, it was from Jolly Holiday Bakery, and from Keys of the Kingdom, it was from Pecos Bills.
Hmm.
So you got to pick your lunch and your menu beforehand. But I remember Walt's Footsteps spent a lot of time on stage, which was kind of
Hmm.
great because then you could take pictures of everything. When you're backstage and in the utilidors, you
Right,
can't
you
take
can't
any
take any pictures.
pictures.
Yeah.
So it was great. But no, I do remember now going on an attraction
Hmm.
in Fantasyland,
For
once you
us,
said
we
in
went
Fantasyland.
on Alice in Wonderland.
Yep,
And
that's what we went on.
it was really cool, and it neither of us have been on the VIP tour, but it
Right.
was really cool because it felt like on the VIP tour because they took us and put us right in front of the lion, and
Right.
that was really
That's yeah.
cool.
I I would like to do that. It's so much money. It's
Well,
so much
yes,
money. Unless
yes.
you have 10 people.
And here's the thing I've often talked about: if you have enough people, it's not going to be cheap, but and like let's say you have a limited amount of time, it's probably going to be kind of worth it if you're like, I just really want to make sure I do everything.
But isn't it like 800 to $1,000 an hour and you have to book it for what, 8 hours?
I don't know if you have to book it for 8 hours, but I remember I did the math on it, and if you've got enough people, it's going to be comparable to the cost of one of the tours that we're talking about.
Oh.
If you've got enough people, and all those people are paying for themselves, right? It's
Yes.
like if
When you're paying for a family of
when you're
4.
paying for when it's one person paying for four people, it gets really
Yeah.
expensive. But if like it's everybody's like, hey, we're all gonna get 10 friends together and pitch in, and everybody pays their own share, it's a
Yeah.
little more affordable. But that's a tour we haven't talked. Let's continue taking.
I know.
So the walk and Watts step, yours went to the apartment too, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We were in the apartment. And I know that for sometimes they don't guarantee it, right?
Right.
Sometimes they can't do it. So they tell you that up ahead of time, like don't get your hopes set on this. Things can change. So we were really lucky, I think, that we were able to do that tour. And again, just like Keys of the Kingdom, you get your own little name tag and you get your own little pin. Mine are packed away somewhere. I haven't
Mhm.
unpacked them from the move, but yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. I did actually for that one pay park admission, and then pay the tour on top of it. I think because at that time I went by myself, like I
Mhm.
didn't have to pay for the whole family
Right.
to go. So for me,
Yeah.
it was worth it.
And I think for me, and again, the economics of this thing is both of the times. Well, not for the studio tour, but for this one, I already had an annual pass,
Oh yes, that would
so
help
it's
too,
not like I
right?
didn't pay to go in, but like the amortization of that particular trip, like to
Sure.
put the tour on top of it. But and, a trip to Disney is super expensive. I am not unfamiliar with that. Uh, but if again you have the means, I highly recommend it.
I recommend
But
it.
again, the dynamic of it again is like if you're paying for you and all your family, it gets really expensive really quick. As
Yes.
this is one of the few, I think, advantages of being sort of a solo Disneyland traveler
That's
is
a good
like
point.
just paying for my own ticket is much more reasonable.
But I also think that it's for the Disney fan. I don't think it's for the casual
Right.
fan because it's so intense
Hmm.
and you are skipping out on a lot of attraction time and things like that
Oh yeah,
in
and
the
you're
park.
probably going to be around a bunch of super Disney nerds, and you're going to be like, "Why are people crying? Because they're looking at a couch."
You know what was fascinating to me is that the tour we were on, the Keys of the Kingdom, everybody was silent. Of course not us. And maybe that's why they were
Well,
silent.
yeah, yeah.
No, we stay towards the back anyway, but I noticed a lot of people just taking everything in and listening, not a lot of
Hmm.
questions. And another thing I did not know until this last tour is that at Disneyland, guest services, the red, the plaids,
Hmm.
they do it all. So they do guest services and all the things that are related to that. Plus they do the tours. At Disney World, tours are a separate department.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
they're under the umbrella of guest services, but you'll see the red plaids doing guest
Hmm.
services, and then the blue plaids
Oh,
are
interesting.
tour guides. So I didn't know that before.
Fascinating. Well, there's
Yes.
also actually another tour you and I did that I'm surprised you don't recall that we haven't put on the list to talk about when through Disney Vacation Club, you got us a tour backstage of Soarin'
Yes, that's
at
true. That's
DCA.
true. That's true. And at Disney World, they stopped doing it before we got there. I made plans to have that set up for us and they stopped doing it. But yeah, that's true. We did get through Disney
And that was a
Vacation Club.
really fun I don't know how much it cost because I didn't pay for it, but
Nothing.
oh,
It
that is
costs
just part of
nothing.
the vacation club.
Yeah. So
So
that's only open to
if you
DVC
really want
members.
that tour, just buy points in the Disney Vacation Club.
Or make friends with someone who is a
Right.
DVC member so that they can take you. Yeah, the behind that was excellent too.
It
So a
was really
lot of
cool.
great things. So Disney, if you look on their website, and we'll put it in the show notes, has a whole section for tours and extra experiences, and there are so many. And so our family and members of our family took part in some other ones. So we'll share that in episodes coming up. But we wanted to encourage you to take a look at some of these tours and change up your Disney vacation a little bit. If you can afford it
Hmm.
and you've been to Disney a million times, do something new. Remember, there's always
Yeah.
something new to do when you go to Disney, which, by the way, this last time we went to Disney was probably the shortest time we've ever spent at Disney World for a vacation. Like, rather than, oh, we're in Orlando for a day, let's go to Epcot. But this time we went and we were there 4 days. It was too much.
Mhm.
It was a lot. This
Oh,
is why
well,
I
and I
go
also
for.
having been there with you, like you're pretty mission driven when it comes to Disney parks, so 4 days is not enough for you. I've gone there for 4 days as a solo traveler, and that's been the perfect amount of time where it's
But
just like,
you don't do anything hardly in four
yeah, you
days.
do. Like I pick a park, do that park, and some of the parks, and again, honestly, I don't spend a ton of time at Magic Kingdom. I go, but I don't spend like an inordinate amount of time in Magic Kingdom because it's the Disneyland analog, and I just really focus on the other three parks and have a great. Here's the thing: as a solo traveler, you can do a lot more stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if
guess
you
that's
realize how
true.
much more stuff you can do as a solo traveler because you're not spending so much time going, okay, what does everybody want to do?
Yeah.
Okay, does everybody want to eat? Where do we want to eat? I was just there at Disneyland this week. If you want to eat, like while I'm getting off Space Mountain, I'm pre-ordering my food so that
Yeah.
on my way to Galaxy's Edge, I just stop. Yeah, it's so efficient.
I'll try that one of these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're a mother. And speaking of which, on a completely different note, we're recording this on Mother's Day. So happy Mother's
We
Day to the
are.
folks who are mothers who are listening. And to those of you who aren't mothers, feel bad about yourself. You should be, you know,
Oh my god. Everybody has a mother, so.
everybody has a mother. Well, some, well, no, that's not true.
What are you talking about?
Not
Everybody was
everybody.
born from a mother.
Everyone was born, but not everyone has a mother
No,
in their life or
that
has
is no,
always,
that is
you know.
absolutely true. You're right. You're right. Everybody was born from a woman there.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
just,
and a how would you say that? Not somebody that identifies as a woman. Uh but not necessarily cis. Anyway,
yeah, yeah. Everyone was born from a womb.
okay.
There you go.
I'll give you that. All right. Okay, Julius. So now we want to hear from you. What tours have you been on, and have you been on the tours that Al and I just talked about? And what was your experience with them?
And we want to see
We.
pictures. Like
Oh
this is one of the
yeah.
areas where I just don't take a ton of pictures. If you followed our Instagram, you can see. But I have a ton of pictures from these tours, even selfies, which I always feel weird about taking selfies.
Well,
But
you know what
please
would
share
be
pictures.
cool, Al, is if we let's share those on our community page, because then we can
Hmm.
just do a big old photo dump. So if you want to see some of these pictures, join our community page. It's Dueling Disney Community Duelists on Facebook, and that's when we kind of get more personal with people and photo dumps and stuff like that. So if you want to join our group there, please do. Um,
You said photo dumps. Go on.
I did. I know. I said it twice actually. Anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Please subscribe, comment below. We would love to know all about your experience with Disney tours. Otherwise, we are on Facebook at Dueling Disney and Instagram at Dueling_Disney. Just all the Dueling Disney stuff. You can find us, I promise.
Oh boy.